I need to be sworn in. Arthur
Okay.
Tiroli.
So,
We are now live, Mr. Chair.
okay, very good. Let me call the case. It's January 26, 2021, and it's 12:30, and we're convened as a board to hear our first case, which was set for 12:30. It's a Mid-Eastern Ohio Building Authority case. It's case number 20-0118, and it deals with the aircraft hangar located in Coshocton, and the building department's adjudication order number is noted on the docket. I understand before we started, we have Mr. Tiroli, Mr. Wilson, and both Mr. Hitchens are present, as is Mr. Boffman. Let's start with the appellant, Mr. Steve Hitchens. Why don't you state your full name, spell your last name for purposes of the record?
My name is Stephen L. Hitchens, Hitcns.
Thank you. And Mr. Harold Hitchens?
This is he.
Okay.
My name is Harold Hitchens, Hitchens.
Okay. And Mr. Wilson?
This is Billy Wilson.
Sorry, my bad. Yes.
She gets
Yeah.
that all the time.
Yeah. And then Mr. Tiroli? Did we lose him?
Art,
Okay, we lost you though. You faded on us.
Am I back on?
You are now.
Okay. Arthur Tiroli, Tirolly.
Okay, Mr. Boffman?
Jason Boffman, Baughman.
Okay, gentlemen, if you would all stand, and Miss Wilson, stand, raise your right hand, and Nick, would you administer the oath?
Sure thing. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
I do.
I do.
Thank you. And Susan, I have the same problem I think that you were describing before, where I can't see the second participants. If someone's on the phone, you probably should mute because we have echo. All right, let me indicate to you that we're a board of 5, but we're down a board member due to an expiration of that board member's term, and the governor's office has not reappointed to the board for that particular member. So we're a board of 4 rather than a board of 5. I'll ask Mr. Tiroli and the Hitchens and Miss Wilson whether or not they still want to proceed in front of a board of 4.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And Mr. Boffman, any objection to that, Mr. Boffman? Jason, are you there?
I am. It takes a while for my phone to unmute. I apologize, but no, I have no objection to a board.
Okay. Very well. We'll proceed. Who's going to present for the appellant?
This
This
is
is
Harold
Arthur
Hitchens.
Tiroli. Do you have the letter I wrote in January
Yes.
regarding in this regard?
Yes.
It seems pretty clear that the building does not exceed the 5,000 square foot limitation that requires suppression. So that's my point of view.
Okay. Questions of Mr. Tiroli? Hearing no questions of the appellant.
Hold on, Mr. Chair. I just want to point out to Mr. Tiroli, the code section in the adjudication letter is Ohio Building Code Section 412.4.6, which
Yes.
is a special section dealing with aircraft hangars.
Correct. That's as noted in my letter.
Okay. Mr. Boffman, what's the position of the building authority?
Harold sent me that letter, and it was some time ago, and I think my response was, and I apologize, I don't have it in front of me. It doesn't apply to this specific section of code. that reference is something that we don't get to in code. So I don't have the letter in front of me. What section of code does it reference for the 5,000 square feet?
The suppression requirements are in table
4.4.6.
412.4.6.
6. And so the table does not say under 5,000 square feet that you don't have to have suppression.
But suppression requirements start at 5,000 square feet and over, not under.
So where does it say that?
That's going to be, we're just going
Limitation
to
is
assume.
5,000 square feet and over.
And I'm asking, I don't see where it says maximum single fire areas, you know, up to 5,000 square feet. I don't see where it says 5,000 square feet and under doesn't require fire suppression. Am I misreading it?
All occupancies have a limitation. Storage is 12,000 square feet. Mercantile is 12,000 square feet. It doesn't say under 12,000 square feet. It's the start of the requirement.
And my interpretation of this is I don't see that it says anything about it not requiring it below 5,000 square feet. Now, if the board feels differently, I won't object to that, but that's not my interpretation of this.
Well, let me invite my colleagues to indicate what their interpretation is.
I'm looking at some code commentary right now, Mr. Chair. I mean, the way that I read the table is that it is 0 to 5,000, right? And it, just like it says 8,000, the next line up the table, that doesn't mean if it doesn't say 7,000 on there that it is not. It means from 5,001 to 8,000. Those are just thresholds where additional fire suppression is required. So I'm looking a little bit more at the code commentary to see if there's any reference to that. But in my reading of the code, I would agree with Mr. Baughman's interpretation.
Which would mean that his adjudication order is correct and would require a variance, correct? If we were to
Correct.
move forward. Gotcha.
Excuse me.
Okay. Brad or Neil, any thoughts?
I actually am looking at it too, and I agree with Paul because it says maximum single fire area, and I believe the threshold probably goes from 1 to 5,000, which would cover the 3,000 square foot of this facility. But I don't have commentaries, so maybe Paul can find something else in addition.
Okay.
Would you say that applies to all occupancy? So grocery store of 1,000 square feet needs suppression? I don't believe that's the case, sir.
Okay, let's let our board members consult the commentary in the code. We'll go off the record for just a second, Nick.
No, we don't necessarily have to, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I don't see that. What I would recommend, if Mr. Baughman is open to it, is to do yet another continuance and let both of the parties contact the Ohio Board of Building Standards to get a fair interpretation of that code section. If that is the case, I'm sure Mr. Baughman, if the case is such that nothing's required under 5,000 square feet,
He'd amend his adjudication order, right?
he would amend his adjudication order, and he would then not require a variance. I mean, that's the only fair way at this point to do it. I don't think we have in the past, unless it's a time when the Board of Building Standards does not want to provide an interpretation of a section. We don't generally on this board provide those interpretations.
I agree with Paul. I believe it should go to the Board of Building Standards for interpretation, if possible.
I agree as well.
What is the, what would the timing be, do you think, as a practical matter, for the Hitchens and Mr. Boffman to consult the BVS?
I'll speak on that if you don't mind. This is Jason Boffman. They've been fairly responsive in my attempts in the past. They are working from home, but I would think that if we called them today, we'd have an answer in a day or so, depending on whether they wanted to consult with each other. That would be my guess.
Mr. Tiroli, any real objection to continuing this matter and allowing the BBS to weigh in?
Not at all.
Okay.
Is there a specific contact person that would be appropriate?
Mr. Boffman.
Typically, if you call, someone will answer the phone. It's typically Mike. You explain your situation to Mike, and he directs you to the best suited person to answer the question. And again, because they're working remotely, sometimes what they do is they take down your information, they contact the person that is relevant and have them contact you. But no, to answer your question, you don't have to know someone specific. You just have to be able to explain your case.
Susan, what's our first February date?
Thursday, February 11th.
Okay. I mean, it's a little aggressive to think we could put you on the docket tomorrow, Mr. Tiroli, but we could get you on to the 11th without any problem, if need be. You may not need to be on for the 11th if the building standards board agrees with your interpretation. I think that would probably, with an amended adjudication order, you just dismiss the appeal. Am I correct, Paul?
That is correct.
Okay, well, let's do this. There's no objection from the appellant or the building department as to this approach. I would entertain a motion to continue this matter.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor of continuing the matter signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, Mr. Tiroli, Mr. Hitchens, Ms. Wilson, and Mr. Boffman, we're going to continue this matter, and I would invite you, if you get a relatively quick response, depending on what that response is, if you need to be on our docket, remain on our docket, notify Susan Steer, who's our board executive secretary, and she'll get you on for February 11th. Is there anything else to come before the board on this case this time? Okay.
This is Harold Hitchens. Art, are you? So Art is going to contact the Ohio Board of Building Standards.
Vote.
I think so.
Yeah.
It could be Mr. Boffman too, but I think the onus is probably on the appellant to do that.
All right.
Okay.
I appreciate your time.
Yep. No problem. Thank you for appearing. That concludes this particular case. Our next case for 12:30 has been withdrawn, and it's only 12:45. So our next case would be at 1 o'clock, which is a Canton matter, the water park on George Hallis Drive. Which I assume we're lacking some of the participants on that at this point in time, because the appellant In that case, looks like there's a number of people that at least had indicated to Susan that they were going to present. That being the case, I think what we'll do is we'll just take a short recess and we'll call the case at 1 o'clock. Nick, we'll go off the record.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Mr. Habel, can you hear me? This is Susan. You're muted.
Yes.
Do you expect everyone that was on that list to attend?
I do not. I invited them. They may just want to listen, but if they're
Okay.
not on by 1 o'clock, they would not be. So I
Well,
reached out to them just in case they needed, if they wanted to listen, so I don't.
Okay. Well, we currently have Sarah Johansson and Mike Kessel
Right.
here. I do not see the building official. He has not joined yet, so I will let the chair know.
Yeah.
Or I did send him an email, but and his backup, but I haven't received a response. Carl,
Yeah, I'm here.
there's a possibility we have 7 attendees that possibly the building official or his backup may be just watching. I'm not sure. But I would encourage, if they're not here by 1 o'clock and we go live, maybe encourage them to call in.
There's also Dana Mitchell. I know I was just talking to him. He was waiting to get in on the meeting, so I don't see him on board yet.
I believe they're probably watching
Okay.
and don't realize that they're not in the meeting.
Okay.
Did you include the building official as well in that they're just watching?
They could be. I don't know. It only shows there's 7 attendees. It doesn't let me know who they are, but they are not present in the meeting currently as a presenter.
All right.
There's also a Chuck Rosati is on the call. He's one of the project managers for the job. He's listening in as well.
Then, okay. Yeah, if they want to, if they need to be able to communicate and give testimony, they're going to have to, if they can't do it by computer, they're going to have to call that number in their invite. I have that. And then the conference ID in order to be admitted by phone.
Okay. Is there a reason why if they would have gone in off the invite, they wouldn't have gotten in direct?
Some people don't, well, you know, I offer that test, that email you get to test beforehand. Some do, some don't. And unfortunately, they think they can, they can join and they end up joining anonymously, and that only allows them to like view and not participate.
Well,
Okay, I'm gonna reach out to him. He may just jump into my office and we might have to mask up, but
okay, that would be easy.
Okay.
Those that are going to be heard, we'll have them sworn in.
We may want to do an announcement when we go back live to let anybody that's sitting out as an attendee know just to call. I have the number available in the conference ID. If they don't have it, we can announce that. And especially the building official, we have the appellant or some that are representing the appellant, but we do not have the building official or his backup here or present at this time.
I understand. Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just got an email from Joe, the backup. Yeah, the backup building official. He says he's in the meeting currently. He must be in as an attendee. So I will reach out to him with the phone number.
Okay.
For those of you that are looking at a screen that says the live event will continue in a moment, you might be signed in only as an attendee that can view, which means you are viewing the presentation, but are not in as a presenter. If your intent is to be a presenter, try to log in again per the directions that Ms. Steer sent to you. If not, please email Ms. Steer and she will send you a phone number where you can call in if you're having technical difficulties signing in as a presenter. Again, if you are just in and looking at it on a web screen, then that is not going to allow you to be a participant.
That phone number is also available on their invite in the conference ID number.
She texted me and she said she could see it. I didn't see anyone go on.
She could see she's on. So I have Dana Mitchell is sitting in here with me, so.
Okay, and earlier we saw
used a
Sarah.
low tech remedy for that situation.
We saw Sarah Johansson on earlier this afternoon.
I think she stepped out, or no, she's still here. Okay, yeah, she may step out. She's the project manager for the water park, working with me on it. And Mike Kessel is a project architect working on the other building that we have. So they may not need to participate, but there may be some direct information that they can assist with if the question arises.
So she wants the site supervisors to try to help with that.
Mr. Habel, are you going to be the one primarily presenting?
Yes.
Okay. And then Mr. Kaplia, you apparently are in. I may not have pronounced that correctly, but if you are in the meeting, can you just indicate as much?
Any of them are.
He is not. I emailed him the phone number and the conference ID. I believe he was watching as an attendee.
Okay. Well, we're in stand down mode until we get to 1 o'clock and see where we are. Okay, so someone's waiting in the lobby. Do we know who that is? Is that the building official?
Joe Caplia.
Oh, good. Okay. How do you pronounce your last name?
Caplia.
Caplia. Okay. Well, that's the way it's spelled. I did not butcher it then. Okay. It's 1 o'clock. Let's go back on the record, Nick. We're going to see. We'll call the case. We'll see where we are. This is case number 20-0141. This is a Canton Building Authority case, and it deals with premises located at 2301 George Hallis Drive Northwest, located in Canton. And the building department's adjudication number is noted on the docket. I understand from before we got on the record officially and I called the case, we have Mr. Habel and Mr. Mitchell together. I see Miss Johansson, and I understand Chuck Rosati, Mr. Habel, you indicated was either in the meeting or going to participate, or he had been invited.
Yeah, we have Mike Kessel is here.
Okay.
And I thought I saw an Ellis Katz.
Okay. Well, let's do this. Case is called. Let's start with the appellant's representative. State your full name, spell your last name, and the capacity by which you're present. We'll start with Mr. Habel.
Yeah, my name is Robert Habel, Habel, and I'm a principal and project manager at Prime AE.
Okay, and Mr. Mitchell?
Sure, it's Dana, D-A-N-A, Mitchell, M-I-T-C-H-E-L.
Okay, Ms. Johansson?
Sarah Johansson, Johansen. I'm an architect at Prime AE.
Thank you. Ellis Katz, are you present? Okay.
We're back, sorry.
Oh.
Hit the wrong button.
Again, Dana Mitchell, principal, Prime AE, M-I-T-C-H-E-L-L.
Okay, I understand that, but is Ellis Katz present? Okay, but I see Mike Kessel. Would you enter your appearance, please?
Michael Kessel, K-E-S-S-E-L, project architect with Prime AE.
And then Chuck Rosati. Okay. Is there anyone else that's on our presenter list that is appearing for this virtual hearing that I haven't named as a representative of the appellant? Okay.
This is Dana Mitchell speaking. Ellis Katz texted me and said he is only an observer and can't be sworn in at the moment. Is that correct?
I don't know. I mean, I can't see my whole screen to see.
Everyone is here that you've mentioned is present. The others are not, so they must be watching as an attendee.
Okay, but I mean, this is the issue here, Mr. Habel. If Ellis Katz's attendance is necessary and you're going to be testimony, we're going to have to get him in live.
Right. I don't know that he needs to be. He's aware of the issues, and he's working as the project owner's rep.
Okay. All right. Well, I think that then is we've exhausted the appellant's representatives at this point in time. Mr. Kaplia, would you enter your appearance, please?
Yes.
Well, we're trying to do this for the record. Would you state your full name and spell your last name, please?
Oh, I'm sorry. It's Joe Caplia, C-A-P-L-E-A, backup chief building official for the city of Canton.
Okay, I'd ask the parties, the building official and the representatives for the appellant to stand, raise your right hand, and our court stenographer, Nick, will administer it.
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, let the record reflect the parties have been sworn in. We are a board of 5 as constituted under the statute, but we're only a board of 4 today because of the expiration of the term of one of our board members, and the governor's office has not reappointed that position yet. So we're going to proceed today as a board of 4 unless there is objection. Any objection, Mr. Habel?
No.
Okay. Mr. Kaplia?
We're good.
Okay, very good. Mr. Habel, you have the floor.
Mr. Chair, before we move forward, I think it's worthwhile at least pointing out on the record. I'll say hi to Mike Kessel. How you doing, Mike?
Hello, Paul. Long time no talk.
Yeah, a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, Mr. Kessel and I worked together. It has been more than 3 years. I do not think it's going to have an impact on this case, but I want to put that out on the record in case anybody does have an objection.
Mr. Kaplia, any objection to Mr. Began staying on the case?
No, that's fine.
Okay. All right. Mr. Habel, you have the floor.
Okay. I believe we have 2 projects, and I believe the first one is the water park. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So just really quick, I did send Susan a little presentation, but I could maybe just describe if we need to get into the graphics. I could grab the screen, but basically the water park.
You should be able to, if you want to do a share screen and present, you should be able to do that in any way. If not, if you want something, we could do that for you. So yeah, there you go.
Okay. Yeah, I'll do it this way. And I'll be quick. Basically, this project is at the Hall of Fame Village in Canton, Ohio. This building is one of 5 projects that are currently under development, and this one is the water park. The key things with the water park, it's roughly 120,000 gross square feet. Construction type is 1B. Use group is A3. The building is fully sprinklered. Okay. Just really quick, you can see the area in the light green, if that color represents on your computer, are the areas that we're seeking relief. And those are areas where the volumes are such that the roof structure is, to the bottom of the roof is 20 feet, and in most cases much higher than that. So we're looking at that. Just really quick, these are the elevations as they're being developed for the building. Combination of precast and some metal panels. Exterior, some interior views, just to get a sense of the volume that we're talking about. So basically, the relief that we're seeking is that in the code, currently table 601 describes the fire protection requirements for the building, and for this case that we're asking about is the primary structural frame. The primary structural frame includes columns, structural members that have direct connection to the columns, such as girders, beams, large scale trusses, those sorts of things, is what the primary structural frame. In the current code, which is the OBC 2017 version, that code is based on the 2015 International Building Code. And in that code, the table, and I have the table up here, requires the primary structural frame for our building type based on the chart plus exemption A can be reduced by 1 hour. So we are required by code to rate the primary structural frame that supports the roof by 1 hour. What we're looking at is the future, and the current IBC, International Building Code, which is not yet adapted or adopted by the Ohio Building Code. We expect that might be as early as 2022, 2023, based on their rotation. That requirement has been amended, and it allows for the exemption of the rating of the primary structural frame where all of the roof is above 20 feet, and you can see that highlighted on this page to the right. So what I have up in front of you is the table 601 from the current code and table 601 from the 2018 IBC, which we're projecting would be the reference of the code down the road. So what we're asking for is that in this diagram in red is the sort of the outline of the primary structural frame, obviously in very diagrammatic form. All of those members hold up only roof that's that exceeds 20 feet. You can see this wall section kind of shows this 20-foot zone, and you can see very clearly even where we have a slide platform way up high, we're still above, we're at 22.9 minimum to the underside of those joists. And that slide platform is very, very small compared to the overall outline of that section of the building. And then in the entry vestibule and the lobby, again, we have a clear area of 20 feet before you get to the underside of any structure. In fact, I think our lowest clearance is 21.4. In other areas, it's as high as 29 foot. So what we're asking for is relief based on the fact that the code has acknowledged the primary structural framing members to be exempt. We know it's not in today's code, but we're looking that these buildings won't be complete until 2022 to 2023 at the earliest. And in addition, with the water park, the actual natatorium portion, rather than any kind of fire spray, whether it be a conventional or an intumescent type of spray, we're going to need to protect it with an epoxy type of materials because of the corrosive environment, which we believe is, in the case of the water park area, the natatorium piece is really more of a need than the fireproofing based on corrosion resistance that needs to take place in that atmosphere. So that's the ask.
Okay, questions of Mr. Habel and or others by members of the board?
Yes, Mr. Chair. The first question I would have is the construction classification that you've chosen for it, is that the lowest one that is going to achieve the area that you need for the building?
Yes, we've investigated type 2, and because of the size of the natatorium, it doesn't work. We looked at it from a standpoint of any types of area increases for perimeter, and if we were to go to a type 2A, we wouldn't be reaching that. Yes, we've looked at that from many angles.
Next question has to do with a project cost scenario. So one of the things that we as a board have to consider is, really what's the hardship? Why can't you conform with the code other than you don't want to? Usually for a case like this, I'm assuming it comes down to cost, but maybe you could talk if there's other factors that you want to add into this, that would be fine as well too. So kind of overall project cost for this, for this building and the cost for conformance.
Well, the total cost of the building is what, 34 million, in the 34 million range. The cost for an intumescent paint, and this would be a net cost because we would be removing or substituting a high performance coating. So it would be the net difference. And I'm looking at an email that I just got from Turner Hunt, our CM, and that number for this building was not large relative. It was about $50,000.
Okay. Any other questions of Mr. Habel, members of the board?
I have one, Mr. Chair. So if cost is not the hardship, what is your hardship?
Well, we're looking at, you're right, we're not looking at it as a hardship. We're looking at it as more of the functional aspect of where the code is going and what it's recognizing. We are encasing the columns up to 20 feet in concrete, which gives it a rating, if you will, and we're encasing them in concrete to protect from all the splashing that's going on. The exterior walls that are in bearing are precast, so those already create a rating. We just don't think that it's necessary based on the direction that the code has been evolving. We've looked back all the way to the 2003 building code, where other other concessions were given with regard to fire protection, and those things have changed over time. And according to the commentary on the 2018, it was to clarify the difference between what is considered primary and secondary members for the structure. And you can see they clearly outlined that the primary structural frame would be exempt. And so we're looking at that as the future. Quite frankly, the hardship is not money. I think it's really more of a practical matter for this project.
Okay.
And then one last question. I did not see in any of the documentation any, and this might be more for the building official. Has this issue been discussed at all with the fire department? Canton Fire, they've presented before us before, and they usually are involved. And the reason why we ask that is because after whatever is decided here, whatever you guys design, whatever we decide goes into a file cabinet for us, the people that need to deal with this at the end of the day is going to be the fire department that has to live with whatever decisions that we decide to do. So has there been discussions with the Canton Fire Department?
Yeah, we actually spoke with him on numerous occasions, actually just last week in preparation for this adjudication hearing. And he was invited. I thought they would be present, quite frankly, or have some kind of report written in pro or con.
What was the department's sentiments?
This is Joe Caplia, CBO.
Yeah.
Okay. I had a backup CBO, so I had to do a little bit of homework to get up to snuff on what's going on. I talked to Rito Alvarez, the plan examiner, and I also emailed back and forth with Scott Winkart, the fire prevention guy, and he has a letter for me that I will share. But before that, I have a question, because is it all right if I go ahead?
You can, yeah, you got to direct the question to me, and I'll direct it then to the appellant.
Okay. What I followed the table 601 request and the bottom line is trying not to fireproof any of the members from 20 feet down below to the floor. They referred to the 2018 IBC, and again, not familiar with it, so I took a bunch of time to try to go back through and follow through what's going on. And it sounds, when you read the 2018, that it exempts what they call it, the primary structural members from being fireproofed. So what I did is I did a little bit more search, and I found there was a technical review done by the International Code Council, and I'm going to read it. It's June 22nd, 2018. It says Table 601 in the 2018 International Building Code. This letter is a response to your email dated, and that's just a lead into it. The issue in question involves footnote B to Table 601. You wish to know if the language in the footnote permits the omission of fire protection for columns supporting the roof construction if every part of the roof construction is greater than 20 feet above the floor below. What we're talking about, basically. Due to the various interpretations of previous editions of the International Building Code in regards to this issue, footnote B to Table 601 was modified in the 2018 International Building Code to state that fire protection of structural members in roof construction shall not be required, including protection of and underlying primary structural frame members, roof framing, and decking where every part of the roof construction is 20 feet or more above the floor immediately below. This footnote is applicable to all occupancies. Okay, that's the standard note. By expanding the scope of the footnote to primary structural frame elements, which wasn't in the original OBC, as well as specifically mentioning the footnote, its application to primary structural frame members, it is now clear that all portions of the roof construction are exempt from fire resistant requirements based on Table 601. Therefore, if a structural frame member that is beam girder, was part of the roof construction, the rating could be exempt. However, a rating would still be required for any columns. So
Okay. You indicated you had a question. Mr. Caplia, you indicated you had a question, and then you were reading the footnote. So is that?
Well, this was a report. This was a commentary that they published, a code opinion that basically said that it doesn't relieve that. I mean, it makes the 2017 the same as the 2018 IBC. It's saying the same thing. When you have steel below the 20-foot elevation, this 2018 opinion says that you still need to fireproof that to meet the requirements for 1B construction.
Okay.
So I'm just sharing that, going back through and looking at it. Again, it's the board's decision to go where they want to on it, but I thought that the 2017 and 2018 basically are telling you the same thing, even though it's in different language based on that commentary. Now, what I'll do.
Well, go ahead, Mr. Caplia.
Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to read this letter from Scott Winkart. He's the fire prevention guy from the city of Canton.
Let me just ask you though to try to read it, speak just a little slower because we have a court reporter that's transcribing.
Oh, her fingers are falling off. I hear you.
She might.
Okay. He says, I received this at 12 p.m. At noon today. I discussed this at length with the design team, architects, and engineers of the project. They continually cite the 2018 IBC as listed. While I understand their stance on that, this standard has not been adopted by the state of Ohio and the laws that bind us. Why is that? Additionally, they stated, as they have with the grader Matt, that the clear reasoning for this matter is to save the client cost. Life safety cannot be dictated by cost savings. Furthermore, I have discussed this with Mr. Dodovich and Mr. Alvarez, and we all agree this is not our decision to make based on the above. We are bound by the laws and the code in place. If the board decides otherwise, we will abide, but I, for one, will not allow money and life safety to share the same vein in my individual decision-making. And again, that was Scott Winkart, Canton, Ohio Fire Prevention Bureau.
Well, I think the fire officials' sentiments are pretty clear. Let's do this. Questions of Mr. Caplia on members of the board. Hearing none, Mr. Habel, do you have further testimony, or do you have the desire to comment on what you just heard from the building official?
Yeah, and I saw that same report too that Mr. Caplia mentioned. We are encasing in the natatorium the columns to 20 feet. So in a sense, we are meeting that rating requirement. What we'd like to do, if it works for this board, is, you know, going up to 20 feet with the concrete, but then above that, we would rather than the intumescent, which we would rather be able to use the protection for the environment of the product in that room. So that would be sort of where we would stand. It seems like the way they're interpreting it is that they're stopping at 20 feet with regard to that rating. And we do have that built into the building for those reasons.
Okay.
We're really not looking at.
Can you explain that a little bit further? How tall are the columns?
Okay, yes, the columns, I'll go back to the diagram. The columns run up pretty close to one in the middle, close to 50 feet tall. And then around the tower, they're much taller. They go up to 70 to 80 feet. but the columns will be coated or encased in concrete up to 20 feet in order to protect them from all the splashing and water that's happening. So basically, we're getting that rating with the concrete for the 1 hour that the code is requiring.
So
Above that,
you're requesting that it's not rated above that 20 feet?
Yes. We'd rather than intumescent, we'd rather go with a 3-part epoxy coating, which is for the corrosion resistance of the steel, which is typical in a natatorium.
Okay, so then let me go back to the building official then at this thing. It sounds like with the building official, and please clarify for me, is that you do not agree with that sentiment, that you would like to see those columns rated all the way up to the roof structure. Is that correct?
I'm thinking that no, they are meeting that requirement of the 20 foot above. Our interpretation was that they were trying to take all the fireproofing off from 20 feet down to 0.
All right, let's make sure we're on the same page then. Mr. Habel?
Okay.
Yes.
Can you respond to Mr. Kaplia?
Yes. The way I've always read the code, and maybe I'm incorrect, is that the entire structural frame as a primary frame is what they're talking about rating, and the 20 foot is really the roof construction. We are rating by de facto of the concrete up to 20 feet. If that's the interpretation that meets code, that's fine, and we're okay with that because we do have the concrete encasement. So it's what happens above that we do not want to get into intumescent type paints or other, because we really want to protect it with the epoxy products.
Mr. Chair, I have a question. What are you doing as far as the columns in the vestibule and the lobby areas?
In the vestibule and the lobby areas, we were asking for the same relief. If that's not the case, we don't have a problem spraying those because we can cover those with drywall. So that can be conventionally sprayed. That's not that's a very small area. There's a small number of columns, and the roof area would be over 20 feet, and then we wouldn't have to spray that because of its height.
Okay. Any other questions of either Mr. Kaplia or Mr. Habel at this point?
Yeah, I have a question for Mr. Habel. So if you use the intumescent coating, would you put epoxy over that?
No, you can't do that. Not for our research, because that is sort of an expandable material that reacts to heat. And what we found is if you coat it or cover it, it can't properly react to the heat, and therefore it may fail in terms of the way it's designed.
You know, I guess I have what I kind of feel like the way the fire department does it away, there doesn't seem to be any hardship. And we're doing this because this is the way the code is evolving. And I'm not sure how much we're supposed to take into account how the code may evolve.
Understood.
We kind of have a code in front of us that we're enforcing. And, if in the past, if there are good reasons why, if it's a hardship in particular, and it doesn't pose any greater significant risk to the public, then we allow variances. And so I'm not, there are a lot of studies going on and informations and commentaries on the future, but we're really kind of bound by the current code. And maybe the natatorium is a special case, because of the steel needs to be protected from the chlorine. Maybe that's a special case. But I would think other than that, I have a hard time, like in the reception area, wherever it is, I don't see the point in providing a variance just for, I'm not sure why. That's the way the code is going,
Well, my 2 cents is that I think we can look to the involvement of the code to determine whether we're going to give relief to the present code provisions. But that doesn't necessarily, in this case, we've got the fire department that is not inclined to acquiesce to the relief, and so I don't know. We'll see where we are on that, but I do think that we can look to the code evolving as a basis, if it's reasonable, as a basis to grant present relief to the building or fire code. But let's do this at this point in time. Let me hear from other members of the board, Paul or Neil.
Well, I'll go first, Paul. The problem with the IBC is they come up with a lot of different versions that Ohio fails to adopt or adopts many years after they come up with them, from my past experience. In this case, I am definitely against it. And I'm for upholding the adjudication or in the vestibule in the lobby area. I'm a little on the fence with the natatorium, but the only problem here is we don't have the support of the fire official, and there is no hardship at all in the natatorium area. And just because the IBC has a different version than the Ohio Building Code does not mean that Ohio is going to adapt it in the near future. Adopt.
Well,
yes, Mr. Chair. Here's my 2 cents on this. When we look at fire safety as a whole, right, we kind of have to say, okay, what's the likelihood of a fire reaching up to that level and being sustained for a long enough period of time that would weaken those structural members to cause a collapse. I think in this particular case, especially with it being a water park, that is unlikely to occur. I will disagree with both the architect and the building official on their interpretation of those code sections, because when you read the footnote B, even in the new version, right, it says fire protection of structural members in roof construction shall not be required, including primary structural frame members of the roof construction. So my interpretation of that is columns are not part of the roof construction. So in this particular case, I would be inclined to support a variance for the natatorium space in not the lobby space, provided that the column protection is provided up to the underside of the roof structure. I think that would allow for the largest concern, which is a practical concern and understood for the environment that those members are in until somebody invents an intumescent paint that also has the epoxy coating requirements for that. I think one or the other, the long-term stability of the structure, protecting those members by some type of coating is probably, in the long term for the structure, more valuable than the fireproofing would be, in my opinion.
Hey, Neil, what Paul just indicated, he was inclined to be in favor of? Is that something that moves you to that point?
I would go along with that. I mean, that's a valid point.
Okay, Brad?
Yeah, I think if I understood what he said, the natatorium, we would go along with it. And I think he said extending the fireproofing up to the roof structure on the columns.
That would be correct.
Yeah, like I said before, I think the natatorium can be a special case, and I can see why that would justify a variance.
Okay, before we take that matter on and actually deliberate, Mr. Habel, would that work for your client?
I just want to get a clarification. Are we saying, I understand with the lobby areas and you know, we will rate the columns there. The question is, are we saying in the natatorium that we would rate it to 20 feet and that the distance from that 20 feet to the rest of the structure, you would allow us to go with an epoxy coating in lieu of an intumescent? Or are you saying to take the 1 hour rating all the way up, which would require intumescent for those areas?
I would be looking at, again, by fair interpretation, and I'm sure if we reach out to the Board of Building Standards, they would most likely agree that the columns are not part of the roof construction and therefore are not exempt in that footnote, even in the advanced version of this code, so that the columns not being part of the roof construction are required to be 1 hour rated all the way up to the roof structure.
And you're not saying that in terms of the performance for corrosion that you're not recommending that we get relief there for that 50 feet? We're just trying to clarify because we want to know what we would have to do.
I think, again, in my opinion, I'm bending a little bit to give you some pathway forward to this, while still maintaining the protection of the structure. So again, if you were to come in here saying, hey, we're rating the roof structure, but we don't have to do it for the columns, I would say absolutely not. That interpretation is incorrect. So as a standalone issue, I believe the columns need to be rated, and that is in the best interest of the project. The methodology is really up for you. Continue that concrete encasement all the way up if that makes you feel better, and intumescent paint if that makes you feel better, or do a enclose it in gypsum board and put some type of epoxy coating on the outside of that gypsum board. There's many ways to fireproof, which I'm sure you are aware.
Sure. Okay.
Mr. Kaplia.
Yes.
Any thoughts on where this board may be headed?
Again, I think you've listened to the fire marshal's request, and I think you're following his request to provide that life safety. So I think we're going in a positive direction.
Okay. Paul, do you need some time?
Carl,
Yes.
just for clarification purposes, on the vestibule in the lobby, we are going to require rating on both the columns and the roof structures, correct?
Well, we're going to uphold the adjudication order as it relates to that. So yes, I think so.
Well, the roof structure is above 20 feet, so it's not required by the OBC 2017. So the actual joists and decking are not required.
Okay.
Right, but any part of the primary structural frame as defined in the Ohio Building Code would be required.
Rated, right.
Correct.
Okay. Paul, do you need some time?
I will need a few minutes, Mr. Chair, if you do not mind.
Okay, Mr. Kaplia, Mr. Habel, and others, we're going to recess for just a couple minutes and let Paul craft some proposed conditions, and then we'll go back on the record and see where we are.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I'm on hold. They're sort of writing it up, but then I got to sit through the second one. And then Tom Sarah emailed, and we've got a Zoom meeting on D-Ball 3. Oh, shit. Humanly possible. No. Yeah.
This is Susan Steer. I have a phone number of 484-888-3073. Could you please identify yourself?
Hi, yes, this is Anthony Murator, calling in for the Andelin NCH meeting.
Oh, okay. Just wanted to see who it is. I believe there's one other case and then yours will be called. If you could go ahead and just hit *6, that will mute your phone, and then to unmute, just hit *6.
Okay,
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Chair, I'm working on getting these conditions put up on the screen here.
We'll go back on the record.
Okay, back on record.
Thank you, Nick.
Okay, I am putting up on the screen some conditions for consideration.
Mr. Habel, are you able to view those, Mr. Kaplia?
I see him.
Right now, mine says the live event will continue in a moment, is all it says.
I can see.
Those that are only watching online and participating by phone, the online live feed is 10 to 15 seconds delayed behind the live event. In any case, let me read them, Mr. Chair. This variance is conditioned upon the following. Number one, Table 601 in the 2018 International Building Code, parent IBC.
Oh, Mr. Kaplia, you might need to mute.
Shall be permitted to be utilized to determine the fire resistance rating of the roof construction in the water park / natatorium portion of the building only. The lobby, office, and pool equipment portions of the building shall adhere to the provisions of the 2017 Ohio Building Code. Number two, all columns in the water park / natatorium area shall provide the required fire resistance rating uninterrupted from the ground up to the roof structure. And number three, this variance is granted based on the use, construction, occupant load, building area, and level of activity identified on the approved construction documents, including the maintenance of all building systems and any conditions required herein.
Okay, Mr. Kaplia and Mr. Habel, comments or questions with regard to those proposed conditions?
This is Mr. Habel. Just to verify, I think if I'm reading this correctly, in the natatorium area, you will be giving us a break on the girders and some of the other members but that we have to take the columns rating all the way up to the underside of those support. Is that correct?
Yes. So again, without being explicit to what ratings you're required to have, I believe your request is to utilize the 2018 International Building Code portions of the building and the verbiage contained within, and that's what we've permitted you to do. Okay. So if the building official determines upon reading that section of the code that the fire resistance rating that you are providing is in line with that, then that is all that is going to be required.
Okay. And that seemed to follow suit with the letter that Mr. Kaplia read, which was that opinion that was rendered and which we also saw. Okay.
No, and that's why, again, my interpretation of that section regarding the columns, I believe Mr. Kaplia is incorrect because that footnote is for roof construction only, and columns are not part of the roof construction, and therefore that does not apply, and that's why condition number 2 was explicitly stated.
Yeah, I think we understand the same way, yes.
Mr. Kaplia?
Yes.
Those conditions satisfactory?
That they will work, yes.
Okay, that being the case, you probably don't need to read those again. I'd entertain a motion.
Yes, Mr. Chair. For Ohio Board of Building Appeals case number 20-0141, the appellant is Hall of Fame Village for the premises New Water Park at 2301 George Halas Drive, Northwest, Canton, Ohio 44708. The appellee is John Dodovich, building official for the City of Canton Building Department, and adjudication order number 2020-0162-1. I move to grant a variance subject to the conditions previously read in the record and noting the no objection of the building official and also noting the objection of the fire official.
Okay, all right. So the building official's lack of objection and the fire official's objections noted. A motion's been made. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the variance, the relief is granted on those conditions, Mr. Habel. And so that concludes that case. Is there going to be any change of lineup for the next case, Mr. Habel? Oh, he's muted. Mr. Habel, you're muted.
No change. Just same team.
And Mr. Kaplia, you're gonna be the Lone Ranger for the building department?
Yeah, I don't have
Okay.
a Tonto, I'm sorry.
Okay. Let's call that case then. This is a companion case, really. It's case number 20-0142, deals with the Center of Performance located at 1901 Blake Avenue Northwest in Canton, and the Canton Building Department's adjudication number is noted on the docket. Nick, go ahead and note for the record that the same participants that appeared in the 20-0141 case are present, including the building official, and I don't think we need to administer an oath at this point in time. We'll make this a continuation of that oath. But I do want to get it's probably a fait accompli here, but Mr. Habel, you still want to proceed in front of a board of 4, correct?
Well, yeah, let's just discuss it and see where it goes. I understand.
Say that again, though. I did not quite understand it.
Yeah, well, I think we want to discuss and see what we might, if we can maybe do something similar in the large field house area. Obviously, it's not a water park, but
No, I know. I just want to make sure that you're comfortable proceeding in front of our board of 4 like you did in the preceding hearing.
oh, yes, I am.
And Mr. Kaplia, same?
Yes.
Okay.
No problem, thank you.
Mr. Habel, you now have the floor.
Okay. You can see my screen?
Hold on one moment here. Okay, it is up.
Yeah. So again, it's the same. We were just presenting the same issue. Obviously, this building is a little different. It is a field house structure, and what you can see on this diagram is the blue is going to be a pre-engineered building, which is going to be a series of bent columns. It's not yet determined if the horizontal structure for that will be part of a pre-engineered. We think it's leaning now towards a truss, but it's a pre-engineered system. And then the back of house in the pre-function area are a conventional construction. So we have a section that's called Area D. That's a 2-story building. That has nothing to do with the roof or the 20-foot height roof. So we're not looking at that. We're not looking for relief. So based on this section, which is rendered similar to that water park previous. The structure of the pre-engineered building sort of in this purple color, and then the structure for the pre-function and the back of house. It sounds to me kind of similar to the discussion with regard to the lobby areas on the water park. So we do have this large structure for the field house. And that's where we were asking for exemption to that rating requirement based on really the same issue of the code being adapted or looking to the future. The cost of the fire spray in this case is about $200,000. If the question gets asked.
Okay. Questions of Mr. Hable at this point in time?
Go ahead.
One of the questions we'll have for this one, this is a little bit different as far as the structure goes. And then at a pre-engineered structure, really the columns and the roof steel is all integral to the same type of member. I'm not sure how we distinguish between columns and or roof structure independently when those are acting as a single member.
If I could clarify that, the structure of the horizontal, this diagram is a little older. It's evolved that it will be a column and a truss joist will be the horizontal member. So this diagram was done before we were that far into the engineering.
Okay, so when you say pre-engineered building for that portion of the building, again, I'm picturing that the primary roof framing member and columns are all part of the same member. Is that incorrect then? Is it there will be separate columns and separate roof trusses for this?
Yes, I believe that is the case. The length of the span is precluding the bent shape as we have shown here. It's more economical to do a girder truss. Okay. So we have a girder truss tying into the columns.
Okay.
Any other questions of Mr. Hable by members of the board? Brad or Neil?
What's the cost of this project?
What's the cost of this one? About 22 million dollars.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Kaplia.
I'm looking and I'm thinking this applicability follows similar to what we discussed in the past. Are we saying that it's not going to be a rigid frame and that you're going to use girder joists and joists instead? So we have a definition of where a true column is and what it extends up to?
Yes, that's my understanding as it's evolved. We were just getting into some of the finite engineering as we submitted this.
Okay, so we really, to continue the column protection up to that definition, I mean, like here, I don't have to find out which is the chicken or the egg with the rigid frame. That'll really be defined in your drawings submitted after this then.
Yes, yeah, that would be more clear.
The pre-engineered company.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be obviously the pre-engineered manufacturer would submit the final engineered product, but we would indicate that on the drawing and where that cut line would be, if you will.
I got you. No, that would work.
Okay, gentlemen of the board, thoughts or comments?
Other question for this facility. I didn't take a look at the construction type for this thing. Is the field house going to be sprinklered?
Yes, it's the same. We've got a 1B A3 use group fully sprinklered. Total buildings 105,000 or 104,000 square feet. If the alternate's not accepted, it's closer to 90.
I don't have any other questions, Mr. Chair.
Neil, you want to weigh in? Brad?
Yeah, I mean, the difference is between this and the natatorium. The roof frame, according to the building code, needs to be, the roof structure itself needs to be fireproofed. Is that correct?
No, the roofs are all above 20 feet, so that's the same issue, that the actual any joists and metal decking would not be required to be fireproofed. It's just the large structure that holds it up, the primary frame, which would be those columns and girder trusses.
Were you asking for a variance for not fireproofing the columns then?
We were asking for a variance for the whole thing, similar to the water park, but it sounds like maybe the compromise is just the columns.
No, I'm saying is the building code, Ohio building code require the roof structure itself to be fireproofed?
No, it does not.
It does not.
Because it's above 20 feet. So
as currently, go ahead. As currently configured, the building code would require the structural girders to be fireproofed. In the newer version, as part of the frame of the roof construction, it would not be. So
yes,
that's the difference.
That's correct, I believe.
Brad, does that answer your question?
So the roof trusses, the main roof trusses that you're talking about would require fireproofing?
No.
The roof framing and decking would not, correct?
That's correct.
According to
everything else would be. So if we upheld the order, you would refer back to the 2000 OBC code.
2017, yeah.
Or 2017, I'm sorry.
So, yeah, so basically between the truss girders, there would be a regular joist system with metal deck. That's all above 20 feet. That ties into the frame.
Right, and the truss girders don't need to be fireproofed.
If you're looking at the 2018 code, yeah.
No, I mean the 2017 code. I'm not looking at 2018.
Definition of primary.
So I'm oh, you look like when you're looking at your you're looking at your desktop, are you preparing?
Yeah, again, in my opinion, I know we haven't gotten around to going that. Again, I think in a similar way, I would be willing to go with the variance for the roof construction in the field house area.
Neil, and why is that, Paul? Just out of curiosity.
Again, when we're looking at fire safety in here, right? That roof is going to be way up high. There's not going to be very much of a load down below, even if there was a load that could support a fire for that fire energy to reach the point where it is going to structurally compromise the roof to cause a collapse. I understand probably where the intent of the code was going for allowing it not to be included. So I think life safety wise, the newer provision of the code is not going to reduce it in my opinion. You know, in the other areas of the building where the roof structure is lower, I can see many a place where there can be a sustained fuel and fire load that would compromise that, right? So that's why the difference when you have a larger volume like that.
Even though it hasn't been adopted yet. And I can see your point. I have a question for the building official. Is the fire official weighed in on this structure here?
I just received the email from him, and I'm assuming he was talking about both structures since they were both 1B construction. They were both A3 assemblies, but he did not define one versus the other. So I can't speak for him. I'm sorry.
And then once again, there really isn't a hardship in place there, correct?
What was that again? I'm sorry.
Financial, go ahead, Neil.
The hardship in place, and this is not for the fire official, are you claiming a financial hardship in this place, or you're really not claiming a hardship? You're just relying on the future adoption of the code?
Well, it's very difficult to fireproof the girder, but I think primarily we were looking to the future code. I mean, the basic paint for this project is, less expensive than the epoxy, so the net difference is a lot more substantial.
Any further questions, Neil?
No.
Yeah, I'm just, myself, there's a comment, that, I guess we can look towards the future code, but on the same token, reasons for granting a variance, what I understand is that they show a significant hardship.
Mm-hmm.
And that the really doesn't change the risk to the public for safety. And I know we've granted them where there is a significant hardship. It doesn't seem like that's a significant hardship in this case either. I guess I have a problem with not enforcing the code as is. What about provisions of the International Building Codes that are more restrictive? We never get those cases, or maybe it's never more restrictive. We only look at cases where it's to your advantage.
Yeah.
Well, that's why.
Well, we're definitely looking at, as sort of as it's evolved, and that's, that's what we're looking at, and what it's sort of why put money into something that's not going to be required next year, possibly. I can't predict the future on this code, but it seems that they sort of readapt the code or modify the code on a 5-year to 7-year basis, and so we're getting close to that.
Well, if you're looking, are you looking to do like a straw poll, Carl?
Yes.
I'm in favor to uphold the order. I'll clarify my position.
Brad,
I am as well right now. I don't see a special circumstance here where, other than it would save a little bit of money. According to 22 million, though, it's really not much. It just seems to me you just kind of open up a can of worms, since we just need to be more versed in where the code may go. I go along with the fire department,
So
the code.
The writing's on the wall, Mr. Habel, in the sense that we're a board of 4, and if Mr. Smith, Mr. Gehring vote to uphold the adjudication order, the adjudication is going to be upheld, notwithstanding what Mr. Began, how he votes or how I vote.
So and just for the appellant in this particular case, not that it would necessarily change anything, because we would have to represent this case. If you wanted to continue until such a time the governor appoints a replacement member for our board, in front of a board of 5, if you could swing 1 additional vote to your side, then you could possibly get a variance that way. That is completely up to you, but in this circumstance that we're in, a split vote unfortunately means that the adjudication order stands.
Can I ask one further question? Some of the things that we were researching is you can do a model of what a fire would do in that space. If we were to come back with that as additional information and maybe take it up again, would that be something that you would possibly look at?
If this matter were continued, you would not be in handcuffs, you'd be able to present how you wanted to present the next time, and if that means you had a fire study,
Right.
you could present it, and we would consider it for whatever value it is. That being said, I think I interrupted Neil or somebody. Did I interrupt anybody that was going to answer that?
Yeah, I would be willing to look at a fire study model, and you know, and I would not object to a continuance, just to give the governor a little more time to fill the vacancy if it gets done. But we never know if that's going to occur either.
So just for clarification, you say you're split between allowing the girder to be exempt. So as it stands now, we would need to protect the entire column and the girder structure as primary structure. Is that correct?
Yes, or by fair interpretation by the building official, what constitutes the primary frame for the roof.
Based on the current code.
Correct.
Yes.
So that, as opposed to what you gave us on the water park, which gave us that variance.
Correct.
Okay.
But again, it seems like Mr. Gehring is willing to look at some additional evidence if you'd want to present it, which I won't speak for him, but usually means, hey, if you could provide a good case that, hey, the fire is not going to reach the top there, is not going to be able to be sustained. If it does, the sprinkler system is going to knock it down, and the fire protection isn't going to really do anything anyways. I'm sure he'd be open to listening to it.
And that might change the view of the fire official.
Correct.
I agree.
So I think we probably, for this building, we might want to continue this and take a look at whether it would be worthwhile to do that study. I can't do the study. We would have to bring someone in to do it, but we'd be able to come back then.
Right. And we've had models presented to us many times.
Okay.
And they a lot of times provide a lot of utility for us reaching an informed decision on whether we're going to grant relief or not.
Okay.
All right, that being the case, I think, Mr. Kaplia, any objection if we were to continue this matter?
No, I think that makes sense. And again, I think that gives Scott, our Canton Fire Marshal, the opportunity to talk, with the designers again and, review that situation and, he can address what he's looking for in that fire study. So I think it's all positive.
Right, I think it's in the interest of the parties. I'll entertain a motion to continue.
So moved.
Okay, I guess maybe Paul made that motion. Who wants to second?
I'll second, Mr. Chair. Neil.
Thank you. All those in favor of continuing this matter, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Ask if we're gonna get
If I don't know how soon you need to get on the docket. Our next hearing, I think, is the 11th of February. And our Susan Steer is very easy to work with, and we're pretty accommodating on getting you on if that's something you want to appear in front of us sooner rather than later.
We'll discuss in-house and get back with Susan in terms of the timing of getting that. Just to follow up, how soon are we going to get, with regard to the water park, the formal information that you presented?
So there'll be an order from our board. I'll defer to Susan on when she might get the certified order out.
Okay.
Susan?
That order will most likely go out by the end of the week. I will email it to you as well as send it by certified mail.
Thank you.
Okay, this matter is continued. We have two more cases, but I want to give Nick a break as well. So let's take a short recess and we'll call the two division cases. Thank you very much, Mr. Kaplia and Mr. Habel and others.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, let's
Good to see you, Mike.
You too, Paul.
And we're off record.
Yeah, Paul, I'll send you an email. It's been a long time.
Yeah, definitely. You're based down in the Akron, Canton area?
Yeah, I live in Akron with my wife and kid and registered since 2014, so living the dream. We've been working from home due to all this, and so, you know, at this point, you know, hopefully I'm going to get back into the actual office here in a little bit, but other than that, you know, just taking it a day at a time.
Good to hear. Good to see you are well, and I remember seeing somewhere they would get married. I didn't know you had a child, so congratulations. Much belated, I'm sure.
He's 5 now. He's time flies, man. And
there you go. Yeah. Well, you got my email, and it's the same as it was before. And yeah, let's figure it out. I'm actually down there enough. We'll figure out a time we'll get together, and when we can get together and have a beverage of some kind.
Absolutely. I look forward to that.
All right. Take care.
All right. You too, Paul. Have a good one.
Okay, I see Neil's back, Brad's back. We'll wait for Paul, Nick, and then we'll get started.
I'm here, Mr. Chair. I have in order to say the live event will continue, I have to turn off my camera. So go ahead.
Okay. Well, then I understand we have Jeff's not going to be appearing for the division. That's going to be Jan. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, great. All right, let's, if we're ready, Mr. Scott, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, let's go on the record. Apologize for the delay, but let's call the case, it's case number 21 hyphen, excuse me, 0001. It is a Division of Industrial Compliance matter, and the division's adjudication number is noted on our docket. let's have an introduction of the parties, first beginning with Mr. Scott and his colleagues. State your full name, spell your last name, and the capacity by which you're here appearing as a representative. We'll do the same thing with the building official. We'll have an oath administered, and I'll get your consent to proceed in front of a board of 4 rather than a board of 5.
Sounds good. My name is Jerome Scott, S-C-O-T-T. I am the architect for the project.
Thank you, Mr. Scott.
Young Jiang, G-A-I-A-N-G, Plains Examiner Supervisor for the state of Ohio.
Thank you. And then, Mr. Scott, do you have others appearing with you?
I think Dan O'Boyne from my office is here, and Tony Murator, who is the project engineer for the project, are online too.
Mr. Murator, are you present?
He was on before, but we can proceed without him.
Can you proceed without him?
on, Jerome. This is Tony Murator.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
All right, he is, and Mr. Boyne's on, and so the only one that is Mr. Holman on? He was on our presenter list.
Yes, I am. I'm here on behalf of the owner, but
Okay.
more of an observer than a participant. Thank you.
Okay, well then, we probably won't entertain testimony from you, but I'll ask Mr. Scott, Mr. Murator, Mr. Boyne, and Ms. Jiang to stand, raise your right hand. Nick, would you administer an oath?
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Yes. Okay, and do the parties consent to proceed in front of a board of 4 today, since we do not have our 5th member due to an expiration of his term?
I'm good with that. Yes. Yeah.
Okay, very good. Mr. Scott, you have the floor.
All right. I think I can share my screen and kind of walk you through the project. So let me try to do that. Where's my screen share button? There it is. Let's see, give me a minute.
Take your time.
I just got to call it up. Not that. There we go. Let's try it now. Share desktop. Can you see my desktop?
We can see you.
Oh, well, that's not good.
Yeah, I don't think you've shared it yet, Mr.
You need a variance.
Desktop.
So kind of next to your picture there should say share. There should be a share button of some kind.
Yeah, I see that. Let's try this again.
Is what you're going to share something you've submitted?
Yes, I think I got it now.
Okay.
You see it?
Yes.
Yes.
It's highlighted in red, so I think you got it.
Okay.
Okay. So just a little background first on this project. It's going in the new Ohio State University Research and Innovation District, which is loosely bounded by Kenny Road, Lane Avenue, North Star, and Kinnear. And it's a project that's bringing a lot of new high-tech research to Columbus and Ohio. And because it's located in this Ohio State district, this being, you can follow my cursor. Oh, didn't want to do that. Hold on. Fit page. This is Lane Avenue, and Carmack would be right there. So it's on a prominent spot. And because we're in the OSU district, they have some design guidelines, and that's what's brought us before the board, having to do with the screening of rooftop equipment. So let me walk you through the project quickly. This is our site, and as you can see, we're using almost all the site. This is the outline of phase 1 building. This is outline of phase 2 clean rooms, and this is the phase 2 mechanical equipment to support that. So we don't really have any excess real estate on the site. to place these cooling towers, so we're placing them on the roof. The only exception would be right here, and that's already dedicated to the emergency generators. So this is the floor plan of the building, and I wanted to show you this to show you what's driving the size of these cooling towers. This area, loosely bounded by that, is all the clean room areas, and these clean rooms require once-through air. So as you can imagine, we're going to push a lot of air through this building. The second thing is people working in these rooms, they overgown, so they gown up, and then before they enter the room, they gown again. So the temperatures are kept a little cooler because of all the clothing in these rooms. So again, that's increasing our cooling load for the project. So on that floor, it's almost, over 50% is once through air. This area right here is all the mechanical space for the air handling units that feed those clean rooms. Each clean room has its own dedicated air handling unit, so there's no cross-contamination. This over here is a clean room research area. So again, we have a lot of once through air on that. Again, people gown and overgown to get in that.
You just faded on us. Mr. Scott, you just faded on us.
I'm sorry. Oh, my network, I got a note, my network is causing poor cell quality. Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now.
All right. So this area here is also clean room and has once through air. And again, the temperatures are lower because of the overgowning. So we have an enormous cooling load in this project. The third floor right here is more traditional lab space and doesn't have the same requirements. This is our roof plan. This is the area in question right here where we're asking for a variance to consider this a story and not a screen wall, so that we can screen these 4 cooling towers right here that are in excess of 20 feet tall. These are some rooftop units that are serving the non-clean room areas. They are screened by a mechanical screen wall that's more accustomed to what you would see in the 10 to 12 feet height. But because these are so large and have to sit on 6 feet of dunnage, the pipes going in and out of these are over 36-inch in diameter. This is the elevation of the building. Again, this gray right here represents the traditional mechanical screen wall, and that is the larger screen wall in the back. So this is the area where we're asking for our variance to consider this screen wall a third or an additional story as described in the IBC we referenced. Same thing here. As you can see, the grade plane around that area is all level, so we meet the height above grade plane for that story, and we also meet the number of stories for our use group. So this is a section through the building, kind of right through the cooling towers. We took a more conservative approach with the design of the building. I'm going to just back up for just a minute. We called it a 3-story building based upon the offices, even though we really only have 2 stories over here. So as this illustrates, we have 1, 2, 3 stories based on the office, and then we're asking to call this zone a 4th story as indicated by the IBC commentary. This is our maximum height above grade plane as defined by type 2A construction, which we're building to. And you can see we're still underneath that allowable height limit by quite a bit. And we're still within our 4-story allowable stories for our type of construction. And so we're really just asking to consider this a story and grant us the variance to have the screen wall hiding the cooling towers above 18 feet so that we can comply with the requirements of the Ohio University design guidelines. I think that's.
Okay. Questions of Mr. Scott for members of the board?
Yeah, the question is a little bit of a comment too, to might show my hand a little bit what I'm thinking. Where are these design guidelines located at? Whose authority says them, and why does their authority supersede the Ohio Building Code?
I'm not suggesting that their authority supersedes the Ohio Building Code, which is why we're here.
You're asking for a variance because of a design guideline.
I am. The design guidelines comes from the Design Review Board at Ohio State, headed by Keith Myers, and who's asked for this requirement. When we researched it into the building code and we looked at the IBC, it seemed like we had a path to move this forward, which is why we came before the board, so that we could actually meet both the Ohio Building Code by the commentary on IBC, as well as responding to the design board. I don't know if that answered your question or not. I'm happy to get some additional information from OSU and provide you their comments on that, if you'd like, Paul.
Yeah, I mean, a little bit. I mean, is this Ohio State University property?
Yes. So the company has entered into a long-term lease to develop the property. Ohio State owns the property. That's correct.
This wouldn't be a division matter if we're in the city of Columbus House off the campus, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, so let me further that question then. So your hardship is saying is because there's some design guidelines, and that's your hardship for this particular case?
I think we're trying to answer your question, Paul. Yeah, I think that's kind of it. We're trying to satisfy the design guidelines that are requested by Ohio State University. I know they were put in place because of concerns by the neighbors in Upper Arlington about seeing this mechanical equipment. That's the background on it. In a weird sense, I don't know that I guess I'd call it a hardship, but I'm actually asking to spend more money to satisfy both OSU and State of Ohio Building Code.
So the design guidelines are to appease the neighbors.
That's
the suburb of aesthetics, and the guidelines don't contemplate life safety, right?
The design lines, I think, were driven by, the proximity to Upper Arlington, and this district extends over to North Star. What I was reading in the IBC commentary, which I attached, I felt since we were below the number of stories allowed for type 2A construction, and that we were lower than the maximum height, I didn't necessarily feel like it fell into a strong life safety issue.
It becomes a life safety issue when you're talking about building height and things like that, when we have the fire department has to respond to this thing, right? If there was some type of event in any of one of those chillers, right? Now the equipment that the fire department has, you're now pushing them into a different category of being able to react to and respond to an emergency. That's why.
But Paul, I understand what you're saying, but the maximum height in type 2A was 85 feet, and we're significantly below that. So I understand what you're saying, but we could build a taller building.
Okay, any other questions by members of the board of Mr. Scott at this point in time?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'm a little confused here. I mean, why wouldn't you just ask for a variance in the mechanical equipment screening height?
I think that's what we are asking for.
I thought you wanted it to be considered a 4th floor.
Well, maybe I misstated that based upon how I was reading the IBC when they said if it was over 18 feet that you should consider it another story. I mean, a real variance is we just want to be able to raise the screen wall from 18 feet to like 26 feet, 27 feet in that range. That's really what we're asking for.
Okay, so I was confused in your presentation.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. I was following the guidance of the IBC and what their commentary was stating.
All right, thanks.
Yep. Sorry for the confusion.
And the screening, this is Brad Smith. The screening requirement is a city or OSU requirement. Is that right?
I would characterize it as a request by OSU as part of their design guidelines. I don't want to call it a requirement because then it might sound like it has the same force as the building code.
Do you have a copy of those their guidelines that you could share with us?
I'm not in the office, Paul. I'm in New York quarantining with my daughter to get her back to school, but I can get that from Keith for you. Absolutely.
Or I mean, or is it a zoning requirement? I just wonder.
No, it's not. As near as we can tell, the City of Columbus and Ohio State University entered into an agreement that they have a special university district. The original university district zoning did have this height requirement in it. That zoning was amended, I'm going to get the date wrong, in 2010, I think, and it references OSU DRB instead.
I was going to say, it's not unusual for buildings to have screening for their mechanical equipment, isn't it?
Yeah, I agree. I just, what makes this building unique is that the nature of the clean rooms and the requirement, the FDA and other requirements for once through air. I mean, it's an enormous amount of air and cooling we're pushing through this building. I be honest with you, I don't think I've ever had to do a screen wall anywhere near this high.
So if we upheld the order, how would you comply? Just drop the screening to 18 foot?
I'd have to drop it to 18 feet and go back and, do my best to tell OSU this is the best we can do.
So the variance is primarily more for aesthetics.
Yeah, there's no real other issue that I can see.
It sounds like in order to get the university district approved, they had to consult the neighbors. And this was a concession.
Yep. Yeah.
It takes us pipe fitters a little longer to understand these things.
Well, to be honest with you, it took me a little while to get my head around it because I've never knew there was a mechanical screen limit height until I started this project.
But I mean, I'd like to get the building officials' input on this. We haven't gotten it.
We hadn't gotten there yet, but that was next on the list here once we got done with questions of Mr. Scott. Jan?
Yes. The state does not have any objection over this, based on a couple of reasons. That one, if you look at the exception of the building code, it particularly says that if the penthouse wall enclosure is to enclose any kind of water tank or elevator tower shaft and that kind of stuff, it can extend it up to 28 feet above the roof line. So, I will look at this as pretty similar to the water tower, really. I mean, or any kind of elevator shaft. So we don't feel like it is jeopardize anything, and this building also is far below the high limitations for this construction type. And that's why we say we don't have any objection over this.
Questions of the division?
Yeah, do you have any, just for my own information, where the 18 feet comes from?
18 feet is coming from section.
Well, I mean, I understand that, but I just, for the reason for 18 feet.
Oh, the 18 feet, I think it is above 18 feet, they will consider additional story.
Oh, okay.
That's the only reason.
What you're telling me for water tanks and elevator shafts, the extension can be what?
28 feet.
And is there any distinction here? It sounds like there is not much distinction between these tanks and those.
Yeah, to us, it's pretty similar. This is a cooling tower. It's pretty similar to the water tower, really.
Is that IBC code or is that the Ohio?
That's in both Ohio and IBC.
It is in Ohio too? Okay.
Okay, then let me be the dumb one to ask the question, then why are we even here for a variance if the building official can interpret the code that the screen can go higher?
Well, that's, it's not specifically calls out for a cooling tower. It's specifically called out for water tank and elevators. So that's why we are bound by the language. We can't really consider this the same, but it's a similar.
Right. In other words, the division had to adjudicate it the way it adjudicated it.
That's correct, because the language.
I'm fine with the variance, Mr. Chair.
So am I.
Yeah.
Paul?
So am I.
I'll probably be the sole dissenter on this. And again, not that I oppose the screen going up high. It just, to me, I don't see the hardship, and I don't see why Ohio State has to tell us that we need to change the law for them.
Okay. No conditions?
Just one question for Scott, actually. Have you consulted with the university fire department about the rescue effort on this?
The actual responding would be the Columbus Fire Department. They have seen the project. The only request they've made to date has been in the parking lot. They want some of the aisles to be larger and stuff so they can get their equipment in and around in the parking lot more effectively.
Is that in front of us? That's not
the site. No, the site plan.
No, that issue's not in front of us, right? In other words,
no.
What you're saying is
we're complying with the City of Columbus Fire Department's request. That's not an issue.
So if we granted the variance, would we note that this is really for my colleagues, maybe not even Paul because he'll dissent, but he may have a comment on this. Would we note no objection of the fire official or to the satisfaction of the fire official?
I believe that we would add a condition that would say a letter of no objection shall be submitted by the fire official to the Board of Building Appeals and the building official before a certificate of occupancy is issued. That way we get a letter, we have it for our files, and we know they've taken a look at this particular issue.
Yeah, so Neil, I assume you and Brad are in agreement?
Yes.
That's reasonable. We're fine.
Okay. Who's going to prepare and read that condition into the record?
Well, I think
the dissenting.
Can we just take into account how Paul said it? Because I don't have the condition in front of me.
Okay. Division okay with that proposed condition?
Yes.
And Mr. Scott, are you?
Yes. Yeah, we're good.
All right, that condition was read into the record by Mr. Began. I'd entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, in the case of 21-0001, the appellant being Nationwide Children's Hospital, for the appellee, Jeffrey Eaton, Building Official, Division of Industrial Compliance, adjudication order number 202-006-0041. I move the variance be granted, subject to the condition previously read into the record and noting no objection from the chief building official.
Okay, that motion's been duly made. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Okay. All right, Mr. Scott, the variance is granted on that condition by a 3-to-1 vote of this board. Anything further?
Nope, thank you for your time.
Okay, anything from the division?
No, thank you.
Hey, how come we didn't get our memo from Jeff?
That I don't know.
Okay.
That's between you and Jeff.
I refer to it as a
thanks,
cheat
guys.
sheet. I refer to it, yeah, thank you. I refer to it as a cheat sheet. Get it. All right, we'll call the last active case on our docket. It's case number 20-0143. And it deals with the premises located at 105 Main Street in Glandsdorf, Ohio. This is a Division of Industrial Compliance matter, and the division's adjudication number is noted on the docket. I had gotten an email from Susan about a half hour ago that said the parties for the 2 o'clock case were here. Mr. Hermiller, are you present?
Yes, I am.
And then is Mr. Schnipke?
Yes.
And then do we have Jeff and Abby? I don't have last names.
Yes, Abby Schnipke and Jeff Kraus.
Okay, let's and we have Young here. So let's beginning with Mr. Hermiller, state your full name, spell your last name for our record, and the capacity by which you're here. Do the same thing. Then we'll go just in the same order. Mr. Schnipke, and then we'll do Jeff, and then we'll do Abby, and then we'll do the division.
Okay, my full name is Thomas Joseph Hermiller, Hermiller, and I am a professional mechanical engineer with Brick Street Studio.
Thank you.
Ronald Victor Schnipke, owner of Schnipke Builders. The name is Schnipke in spelling. Owner of the property as well.
Thank you.
Jeff Kraus, Krouse, Design Director, Brick Street Studio.
And Abigail Schnipke, Schnipke, architect for Brick Street Studio.
Okay, very good. And the division?
Young Jiang, Jiang, Plains Examiner Supervisor for the state of Ohio.
Okay, if all those who just entered an appearance would stand, raise your right hand. Nick, would you administer the oath?
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
I do.
Okay, whoever wants to present for the appellant has the opportunity to do so now.
Mr. Chair, before we start, it might be best, because there's a question out there about whether or not this is a change of use. Maybe before we start, I'd like to have Young give us an update on why this is a change of use and adjudicate it accordingly so.
Okay.
Fair enough. That's fine.
Okay, this is the result from a preliminary plan review meeting with the owner and representatives. And the examiner talked to the owner, and the owner stated that this was used as a store and also some kind of storage place. So that's where the change of use come from. Right now, it's changing to the business use. However, when the drawing was submitted, it was submitted as business use, as the existing use group, and then but you know, as it's changing the business use, so it's really not a change of use. So I guess the because we do not have a record of this building previous use, what was approved. So we can only go by what the owner told us, what the previous use was, which was the store and storage area. So that's where the change of use come from.
Okay, when we had our preliminary review with Sudhir.
And is this Mr. Hermiller, just so we're?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you.
We got our preliminary review with Sudhir, and at that time, the owner mentioned that this store was once a grocery store. However, it was only a grocery store up until 1964. The store closed in 64. The building's been vacant from 64 to 68, and then Schnipke Builders actually purchased the building in 1968. So once they purchased it, it was no longer a grocery store. And since they purchased it, it's just been used as a business use, as an office and meeting space.
Questions of Mr. Hermiller on that point?
I guess I'd need to understand. So you're saying from 1968 until this day, the building has been occupied and been used as offices?
That is correct.
Is there any classification of it having been a grocery? I mean, you've indicated it was through 1964, but is there something on file?
No, there was never anything on file for this building. That's why I'm trying to.
Yeah. Okay. So there was never an occupancy permit issued?
We do not have any record of it.
Okay. Well, let's go to the division then. What's the division's position here?
Well, since we do not have any history or records about this building, so we can only go back to what it was originally approved, originally constructed as. If it is changed from 1968 up into be the office building or meeting places, like they stated, we do not have any record to back that up. You know, I'm not sure how did that come about, but we can only by the law we can only go back to what is originally approved, what is originally built for.
Well, let's advance the conversation then. Mr. Hermiller, what relief is the appellant seeking?
Well,
just change, is it to be reclassified, or is it relief from the building code?
it's relief from the building code for accessibility into the building. Because there's no space to put in kind of a ADA ramp at all. The building is landlocked by the streets of the village, and we show that on our site drawings. So we don't have any place to put a ramp. We don't have any place to put parking for accessibility, and there's no route from the parking that we don't even have to the building. So we're just asking that, you know, we'll bring the building up to code in every aspect except for being able to provide an ADA ramp into the building.
Okay, I'll defer to my colleagues here. Questions or comments at this stage?
Well, I mean, I guess the reason why I wanted to bring the question up at the beginning is to make sure that we, you know, the state maintains their jurisdiction and the adjudication order is still active if the question about a change of use needed to be settled. You know, so again, if we're going to continue with the assumption and line of reasoning that a change of use has occurred because we do not have accurate records, then we should proceed with the variance. If that is still a question, then we need to get that determined before we would be permitted to act. I think.
I agree. What do you think? How would you answer your own question?
Well, I'm okay. I mean, I understand, and Young's reasoning with this, right, is they have to go by the records that they have available to them. This happens not just in this location, it happens all over the state where, okay, yeah, something's being used as something, you know, for a long period of time, but that doesn't necessarily make it so. And that the records, you know, are what they are, and we take that as fact, and then we would need a change of use in this particular circumstance.
Neil, your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm not really sure either way, you know. I think maybe we should get an opinion.
From who?
Well, similar to what Paul recommended. I mean, we don't even know if it's not a change of use, then we don't even have to hear it, or it falls out of our jurisdiction.
Then what happens? So, I mean.
Well, yeah, here's what I would say. I am willing to accept Young's representation that this is a change of use coming from the building official. That's all.
Okay. Brad, your thoughts on moving forward?
I was curious, this has been over 50 years, apparently, that it's been used as an office. And so we're going to go back 50 years ago and say, yeah, it seems like there ought to be some grandfathering or something in here after a period of time. And so it's a technical, as far as I'm concerned, it's a technical interpretation by the building official based on the records they have or the lack of records. So, you know, I mean, what if we just went ahead with it? The owner conceded that it was a change, and we determined if it's only, this whole issue has to do with accessibility anyway. I understand.
Right. So if we accept Young's premise, if this is a change of use, seems to me that we can consider whether or not we're going to grant relief, grant a variance. Agreed, members of the board?
I have one question on it. If we accept it's a change of use, is it going to trigger any other violations of the building code?
As far as I know, that you know, from a mercantile store to the business, it's not that much change. You know, the code requirement for these two use group is not that much change, especially when the building this size is not like a huge building. So their provision is not changed that much.
Okay, I'd be willing to hear the case and determine whether a variance in our discretion is worthy or not. Anybody opposed to that on the board?
No.
Okay. All right. Well, Mr. Hermiller, it's back to you, although you probably already told us what you need to tell us, but we're sort of over the procedural hurdle here, and so this would be the opportunity to pitch the case for a variance.
Okay, you can put it to we didn't show. Are you folks able to see our screen?
Yes. I can put it up, yes.
It should be an aerial view of the building at the awkward intersection of Blanchard and Main Street.
We have that. Yep.
Wonderful. Okay, Joe, go ahead.
Okay, well, our whole point of interpretation of chapter 34 of the building code would be that it's technically not feasible to put a ramp anywhere into that entry of the building. And if you look at the photograph that we just put up on the screen, the entry would be the door right here. If you can see that door. There's just no, we explored it 3 different ways based on what Sudhir asked us to do. We went out looking to the west, to the north, and to the east, and we could not come up with any ramp that would be accessible. It's because it is so close to the street there.
So where's the private property end and the public property begin? Where that grass was?
Yeah.
Yeah, if you look at the site plan, it would be right at the where the pavement of the streets end. So there's Blanchard Avenue pavement and there's Main Street pavement.
Okay.
You have a plan C-102 that shows where the right of way is.
We do. Bear with me for a second. We'll get you there.
There you
As Jeff just put up on the screen, you'll see the right-of-way lines both on Blanchard and on South Main Street. And that is a very dangerous intersection there. School buses, there's a school right across the street from this office site, and there's school buses that turn from South Main onto Blanchard. It's a very tight radius there. And we actually explored going from what the code note 1 is, heading straight out to the, I'm going to call it the north. And that was a suggestion that Sudhir made when we had a conference. The mayor of the village of Ada said absolutely cannot do that. Landlord, excuse me.
The village of Ada didn't like it either.
Let me ask Mr. Schnipp, does the public come in? Is there a showroom or plans or what is the general occupancy of the building?
Mainly office staff, and there's just 2 or 3 of us that are in there off and on. 1 secretary full time, and then 2 people in and out of there.
Okay.
Well, I do have a question about the space between the 2 buildings and why they can't be utilized for a ramp.
There's not a place to run the ramp without going onto the street again.
You have concrete from the back of that you come in from the parking lot that you walk in right now, correct?
No,
I assume most of you walk in through the back door. You don't walk on the street to get to the front door from where your parking lot is at. Is that correct?
That parking lot is for the apartment tenants. We park up on the street. We don't ever, that's for the tenants in the apartment next door.
Okay, so again, let me ask the question, why can't you use that area between the 2 buildings? Nice big concrete area. It would be actually very inexpensive to, I mean, it looks like, no more than 8 inches, maybe it's 12 inches. An 8 or 10, an 8 or 12 foot ramp, plenty of room to do it. Just pour concrete in there and you're set.
So this is Abby Schnipke. What's not shown on the site plan is there is a step from the reserved parking spot up to the right where, if you can see our mouse, that's not shown in our drawing. So there's a step there. So we'd have to address a new concrete zone right there to get basically another ramp or some kind of a, they'd have to tear up the concrete and redo it to get that to comply with a route to that ramp. And then Jeff,
do you know any builders that could help you with that?
And then Jeff, if you want to go to the picture of the alley.
I saw the picture of the alley.
Isn't there one right in between?
Yeah, stand by.
I believe the hardship is there's two doors. So the door to the left, this picture, yeah, the door to the left would be the door we'd want to enter into. And there's actually two doors on that wall, one right past the other as well. And that's actually a step down. And then there's, so the
Yeah, that's what I said. It looks like you don't use that door anymore and you already poured concrete in front of it.
well, I believe that that concrete's been there a long, a couple, 20, 30, 40 years. And I think that was there.
I don't know about that. I would be surprised if that concrete is that old.
It's like 20 years since that's been done.
But even if it's 20 years, you know, it's been in your own possession since then. It looks like you poured concrete higher than that door sill already. Is that incorrect?
No, we had water line there, so we put concrete so it sloped it out so the water would drain away.
Okay, but so you don't use that other door is what I'm saying.
Yes, we do. There's one step down into that door, into that building.
Okay, so what's the other issue why we can't do it?
I believe we don't have enough run length to get, if you go back, sorry, there's two doors to the left and there's one door to the right. So it's kind of hard to see that third door. But I don't believe we have the run length to go that way.
Is
you're getting onto the street.
Why don't you go backwards back towards the parking area? Why does it have to go to, well, first of all, I think you can go to the street. Looking at the site plan based on the dimensions that you right there, again, from the concrete up to the door sill right there, it's what, 8 or 12 inches? Right, so you need 8 or 12 feet of ramp. It looks like either direction, there's plenty of room. For me, looking at it.
And then I think the other technical unfeasibility is if you get a 3-foot ramp in, we don't have the 5-foot landing at the top of the landing and still be able to, I guess, get around the ramp to access the door on the right into the storage building. So if there's a 5-foot landing outside that doorstep, you're only going to have a foot in front of the storage building door.
Okay, is there any way to relocate that door or raise that door up to the height of the landing?
Yeah, it's in the storage building door. They're asking if it can be relocated. Yeah.
You're gonna ruin their beautiful brickwork. Does that count?
Yeah, I think.
You've already poured concrete in front of it. I don't know, it doesn't make a whole lot to me. Again, the reason I'm asking these questions as an architect and person who has property in an old building, there is, to me, and again, it's just getting to my opinion on this, there is a way to do it. I don't see any reason why, for sure, you can't build an accessible parking space. There's no reason for that at all. And I can see many ways here, again, by my questions, that I think there's a way technically to do it. So I guess I have no further questions, Mr. Chair.
Any other questions of the appellant? Let's hear from the division.
This, we look at it in several different ways, and in working with the customer, the architect, designer, and try to make it work. But everywhere we turn, it seems like there is a little problem here and there. And we look at the building as, just being the office building, and it's not really for general public that much. So we do not have that much objection over this, as long as if they have a handicapped people come to the store, come to their office, they're gonna have to provide some sort of assistance for that. So that is our thinking right now.
That would be a condition?
Yes.
Okay, any questions of Jan?
I have a question, Jan.
Yeah.
I guess if I was in, I don't know if there's a city engineer or anything. I mean, that this whole thing, they looked at putting a ramp, I guess, near the side of the building coming out. I mean, I'm not even convinced that you can't connect to the existing sidewalk and kind of make some right turns and make it work. But it would be really unsafe having cars turn that corner and school buses. You should make them extend the curb around there and protect that. Maybe put a 25-foot radius or something in there to keep people from driving all over the place on their property. But I know that's not the question, but that'd be one way to handle it, would be extend the curb around and put the ramp up front, the side door.
Yeah, that's, if you look at the right-of-way line, is right against the building from the street.
No, it's not. It comes to a corner out there.
I had a hard time, yeah.
If you look at their right-of-way drawing, it shows there's room out there to do some work, but anyway, yeah, there you go. In that area right there. Now, the city could extend or somebody could extend the sidewalk out, bring the curb around and make a radius in there. And then there might be room, but in the back, what Paul is suggesting is probably even a better idea. So I would go with that.
Neil?
I have a question for the appellant. What is the cost of the renovation?
The cost, and I believe we provided that in one of our documents, is right around $101,000. And that includes new mechanical system, new ADA restroom,
And did you ever?
Interior work, and they're estimating the cost of a ramp to be around $12,000.
Oh, you did. Okay.
Okay, gentlemen, our board, what are your sentiments? I think I know, but.
What is the owner proposing? Doing nothing there? You have two different designs. And I guess you're not, or three different designs actually, but you're proposing to do nothing?
Well, the relief would be to avoid having to put the ramp in.
Okay, I mean, they right.
Neil, where are you?
I'm up in the air. I did. I apologize for missing that cost, layout. But when I'm looking at, the cost is $90,000. The proposed ramp, and I don't know which design that they're looking at, like $12,000. I'm not sure if there's a change in use here or not. I'm up in the air. I mean, I would like to hear from my colleagues to get their position, but I'm up in the air either way.
I mean, I could, with the proposed condition that the division proposed, I think I could find my way to a variance. But again, we're a board of 4, we're not a board of 5, and a split vote's going to carry the day for the adjudication order.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, obviously, I think my feelings are known. I think you got some bright people there, a builder and an architect, both of the same family and ownership of the building. I think there's probably a way that they can figure out how to do it without too much trouble or too much cost. And it's not a difficult request, in my opinion.
Okay, and that comes down to you, Brad.
Well, as much as I hate to do this, I agree with Paul. No.
Okay, so to the appellants, it looks like the adjudication order is going to be upheld if we deliberate. If there's a way to continue it and you want to await the governor's appointment to a 5th member, that might change the dynamic. If you're participating or listening in on the preceding hearing, that's what happened. There was a continuance to see what transpired. And maybe you go back to the drawing board and, maybe there's an alternative here that's, a sort of a half-pregnant alternative that's not nearly the financial hardship. But it looks like 2 of us were willing to probably find our way to granting the variance, and 2 of us are not. Would you like to continue the matter until we're a board of 5?
I think it looks, I think that's optimistic. It's a good way to do it.
Wait for the board of 5.
I mean, here's, and again, I just want to be honest with you. We don't know how long it's going to be till the governor appoints that position.
Absolutely.
It could be tomorrow. It could be 6 months from now. And that would have impact on your permitting. I just want to be open with that.
Right. And I think before I joined the board, maybe before all of us joined the board, I think Susan could attest that there was a vacancy for a long time, like 6 months or a year.
Correct.
Well, anyways, we got Mr. Hermiller or, any of the appellants. You tell us what you'd like us to do as it relates to continuing the matter or deliberating.
They're seeing a path to plugging it in. That's what I think what they want to demonstrate. You want to wait for a 5th, or do we want to accept the resolution? We're not waiting for a 5th. I think we're accepting the results of this.
It sounds like we.
Well, why don't you mute so we don't hear your own deliberations or conversation?
It sounds like that they're willing to accept the resolution of.
Yeah, if I'm understanding right, you'd like us to proceed today?
They are muted.
You're muted.
We are not waiting for a 5th.
Okay, all right. That being the case, we certainly respect that. I would entertain a motion.
let's see, would you like a motion to uphold or a motion to grant the variance? I think it depends on which way you want to go with this one.
Well,
You're making the motion.
yeah, I mean, it's gonna yield the same result unless one of the board members has an epiphany in the next 30 seconds.
Okay. If that's the case, then, Mr. Chair, I would like to move for a Board of Building Appeals case number 20-0143. The appellant is Ronald Schnipke for the premises 105 Main Street, Glandorf, Ohio 45848. Appellee is Jeffrey Eaton, building official, Bureau of Building Code Compliance for the state of Ohio, and adjudication order number 2020-06-0055. I move to uphold the adjudication order.
Okay, that motion's been duly made. Is there a second?
Second.
Who was that? Was that Brad?
Brad,
yes.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. All those in favor of the motion to uphold the adjudication order, say aye.
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 Any opposed?
Hey,
Nay. Okay, by a split vote of this board, the division's adjudication order is upheld. Mr. Hermiller or Mr. Janney, anything further to come in front of the board at this time?
No, sir.
I have nothing further.
Okay, thank you. Okay, that concludes our active docket today. I will, for purposes of the record, indicate that we had an earlier case that was withdrawn. That was case number 20-0134, dealing with the Ruan Transport located in Brooklyn, Ohio. And the last case that we had originally had scheduled for our docket, which is an OBETS case, case number 20-0135, has been moved to tomorrow's agenda, which is January 27th. So that concludes the case docket for today. We still need to approve the minutes from our last hearing, which was January 12th, 2021. Do I have a motion to do that?
So move.
Is there a second?
second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The minutes for January 12th, 2021 have been approved. She's got on our, Susan has on our agenda that we can go ahead and consider approving compensation for our preparation and time today. Is there a motion to do so?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so compensation for our preparation and then time devoted today has been approved. Our next meeting is tomorrow at 8:30, which is January 27th. I was looking at the agenda. It looks like we have an elevator case at 8:30. And then we've got, oh, you know what? The Worthington case is right after that. So wait, I was going to suggest we back it up by 15 minutes, but I was thinking that the Worthington case was at 9. So I think we can just stay with that agenda. Anything else to come in front of the board at this time?
I have a question for Paul. Where do you get the commentary for the code?
You have to buy it.
Oh, okay. You have an old copy laying around?
I have a copy for the old code. Sure, I'd be happy to send that along. I don't have new code commentaries either. I know it seems like some of these larger firms, can go out and buy the latest and greatest and find out what's new in them. I do not do that. So.
Is that something I can get from the Board of Building Standards or check with them to see if they have?
I think it would be worthwhile, besides having the code, to have a copy of the code commentary for this board. Again, it's nice when you open it up here's the code section, and, sometimes twice the length of the code section is a description of why they have it that way, what the exceptions are and what it means. So I do think there's value. I mean, I obviously use it all the time, so.
Let me see what I can do. I'll talk to Regina.
Okay, Nick, do we have you tomorrow?
Yep. Yeah, you do.
Very good. All right, well, subject to our next meeting, which is January 27th at 2021 at 8:30 virtually, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we stand adjourned. Anything, Susan?
No, I have nothing.
Okay, very good.
I'll see you in the morning.
Yep, see you around the morning.
All right.
Bye, everyone.
Aye.
Bye, guys.
Aye.